Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise tonight to make a contribution to the Future Made in Australia Production Tax Credits and Other Measures Bill 2024. As we've heard from the Minister in her contribution, my seat of Flynn in central Queensland and particularly the Greater Gladstone area, this is entirely relevant to us, given the fact that we have Stanwell Corporation, a Queensland Government GOC, that has put forward a proposal to build a hydrogen plant in Gladstone and associated products. I'll get into that further a little bit, but first of all, an overview of exactly what this bill is. So this bill seeks to implement the government's Future Made in Australia production tax credits for green hydrogen and critical minerals. The bill puts significant compliance obligations on businesses eligible for either a hydrogen or critical minerals tax credit, including compliance with community benefit principles, which are defined via regulation through the Future Made in Australia National Interest Framework Bill 2024, which the Coalition is opposing. The hydrogen production tax credits runs until 2040 and do not commence until 2027. To be eligible for the future hydrogen production tax credit, a minimum requirement is for a business to have a production guarantee of origin certificate, which the Coalition is also opposing. The tax credit is valued at $2 a kilo and only green hydrogen is eligible. The critical minerals production tax credits run until 2040 and does not commence until 2027, as I've said. The bill interactions with other industry programs give both the CER and Industry Department and ARENA new roles in tax administration, including allowing the ATO to share protected tax data with these agencies. Foreign resident companies with an ABN and a permanent establishment who conduct eligible business through their Australian establishment will be eligible for these tax credits. The third schedule implements a Future Made in Australia agenda by allowing Indigenous businesses Australia to leverage their capital to invest in First Nations communities' businesses by allowing them to borrow against their existing capital. Now, there are several issues and they are wide-ranging, and this bill embeds nebulous community benefit principles in the Tax Act. And I've got some specific ideas about that which I just simply do not agree with. The legislation makes requirement for eligibility for tax credits compliance with the community benefits principles which were part of the National Interest Framework. Embedded in the National Interest Framework legislation is a community benefit principle that will be enforced by Future Made in Australia plans. These plans can be made by the Treasurer through regulation and will be enforceable. The community benefit principle embeds First Nations procurement and union participation as requirements to access Future Made in Australia funding. Any participant seeking funding under the programs associated with the National Interest Framework will need to develop a Future Made in Australia plan. The BCA, among others, has highlighted that this risks duplicating the sort of embedded procurement process in state governments that have empowered the CFMEU to monopolise tender markets. Further, the policy largely doubles up on Labor's 2013 Australia Jobs Bill, which requires significant investment proposals of $500 million or more to develop an Australian industry participation plan, which is administered and monitored by the Department of Industry. The Coalition opposed this bill back in 2013 on the basis that it added red tape and compliance costs, and the legislation is frequently cited as one of the biggest red tape impediments to investment proposals, along with EPBC approvals. By tying tax credits to community benefit principles, it is highly likely factors like businesses' EBA status will be a factor in their eligibility for a discount, and this is to be used as a further wedge by union negotiators in a bid to increase unionisation in the mining industry. Now, Deputy Speaker, as I said earlier, in Gladstone we know there is a significant proposal there. The Greater Gladstone area has been nominated by the by the government as a future hydrogen hub. And we know that Stanwell Corporation, as I've said, Queensland government-owned corporation, is proposing to build a hydrogen production facility at Gladstone, a green hydrogen production facility where they will use electrolysers.
Order. I thank the member for Flynn, who will be able to speak in continuation at a later
time. And I give the call to the honourable member for Flynn.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to resume my contribution to the Future Made in Australia Production Tax Credits and Other Measures Bill 2024. And as I was saying, we were talking about Stanwell Corporation in Gladstone that is proposing to build a liquefied hydrogen and gaseous hydrogen production plant in Gladstone. So this is in conjunction with several international consortiums, among them Iwatani, Marubeni and Keppel, and recently we've understood that Kansai Japanese Electric Company has withdrawn from the proposal. And you would have to ask yourself, why is that? And they continually quote the same things: the economic cost of producing hydrogen, liquid hydrogen and transporting hydrogen. We've seen other companies such as Fortescue, Origin, Woodside, Krupp Steel, the German steel maker, and so forth, also withdraw their support from these huge proposed hydrogen projects, purely based on the economic cost of it. So, in respect to the Gladstone proposal, Stanwell Corporation is proposing to make a 800 tonnes per day liquid hydrogen facility and also produce 1,200 tonnes of gaseous hydrogen, which they intend to also build a ammonia plant there. And the problem with all of that is that if you actually analyse what their proposals are, it is something that is going to be enormous. So global installed hydrogen liquefaction capacity is around 355 tonnes per day right now. The largest plant currently in operation has a capacity of 34 tonnes per day. All-time largest hydrogen liquefaction plants constructed at NASA during the 1950s and 1970s, and most recently constructed plants are small in comparison. Nonetheless, even if specific energy demand of liquefaction can be significantly lower, and the capital costs of liquefaction are still a significant part of the overall cost of liquefaction, even for larger plants, it is estimated the capital investment consists of around 40 to 50% of specific liquefaction costs of these plants. Now, we know that the largest liquefaction plant is at Cape Canaveral at the Kennedy Space Centre, 34 tonnes a day. So what Stanwell is proposing is to build a plant that's capable of producing 800 tonnes per day. The storage capacity at Cape Canaveral is about 800 tonnes. So you would imagine that Stanwell would be proposing to build a storage capacity of at least 10 days production, so therefore we would have to have a storage capacity of something like 8,000 tonnes. So the reality of this project, Mr Speaker, is that it could possibly be something like 10 times bigger than the liquid hydrogen facility at Cape Canaveral at the Kennedy Space Centre, right at Gladstone. And that then raises questions of the enormous capital cost involved in doing this. And why is it these large international companies are withdrawing their support from it? As I've said before, Fortescue, Origin, Woodside, Krupp Steel in Germany, and now Kansai, Japanese electric company that was part of this original consortium, they've withdrawn their support. And it's all over money, the economic cost of it. Saul Kanovic, energy analyst at MST Mark, has said green hydrogen economics are so uncompetitive that even with generous government subsidies and a captive buyer, it still struggles to work. So for me, I would ask the question, why is the federal government supporting a Queensland government GOC, along with the previous state government, investing millions and millions of taxpayers' dollars in projects that are just economically not viable? We have got people living in cars, people living in tents, families that can't send their children to sporting practice. Yet here we've got governments continually wasting money on what is clearly economic madness. So in respect to the government's Future Made in Australia production tax credits and other measures bill, what they're proposing is to bring about a regime where they will give tax credits to try and alleviate the cost of producing things like liquid hydrogen and gaseous hydrogen. And once again, the numbers just simply don't stack up. I'd like to turn to another point, and that is First Nations procurement, which I outlined earlier in my contribution. And we know this from the documents that Stanwell has put before the EPPC office, that already there have been agreements for reparations and inclusion of First Nations people and so forth in these projects. However, in the documents it says that memorandums of understanding agreements have been made. However, these agreements will not be made public because of their sensitive nature. Well, I take great exception to that, Mr Deputy Speaker. This is taxpayers' money we are dealing with, both with our governments, state and the former previous state government, the federal government, who are dealing with the Queensland Government GOC with taxpayers' funds. Why cannot we be transparent and have some accountability in respect to who is doing these deals with the First Nation proponents, what exactly are they and how much money is involved? And this is once again why I call for the fact that Aboriginal corporations need to come under Australian corporate law so that we can see where all of this money is going, who is making these deals and what are the numbers involved. So, with respect to the government's bill, as I've outlined, these projects are economically not sound, and for the government to continue to promote green hydrogen as a viable alternative into the future is a long, long way off. We just simply do not have the technology to do that. The World Steel Association, in their fact sheet, they have said the world produces about 70 million tonnes of hydrogen right now. 3/4 of that hydrogen is produced from natural gas, about 1/4 produced from coal. Now, if we were to change that and produce that 70 million tonnes of hydrogen through green energy and so forth, wind turbines, solar panels and batteries, the amount of energy required to do that would be 3,600 terawatt-hours of energy, renewable energy. And that is more than the entire generating capacity of the EU. So, once again, I would question building an 800 tonnes per day liquid hydrogen facility in Gladstone, 1,200 tonnes a day of gaseous hydrogen, building ammonia plants and so forth. How many wind turbines and solar panels and batteries will be required to be installed in central Queensland to make this thing work? It just simply doesn't make economic sense, and that is why I and the Coalition do not support this bill.